Good Friday morning, everyone. Schuyler Callihan here with another episode of Between the Ears. This is our final one of the week. As you know, we go Monday through Friday here on this program, and today we will talk about the offensive side of the ball. As promised, nothing crazy happened, so we're going to be able to talk about the offensive side, what to watch for in tomorrow's spring game in Morgantown. That should be a fun one. Obviously, yesterday we couldn't really talk too much about the defense because, let's be honest, it's not really geared for the defense, and it's just kind of two-hand touch. So today we will get into the offense, what we should be looking for, what we would hope to see at this point. First, make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page here at Mountaineers Now. Give us a like and a follow on X at that same handle. You can follow myself at Callihan_. So the offense, first things first. Sean Boyle. West Virginia lost a piece of the quarterback room. Yesterday, he announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal. So now the Mountaineers have just two scholarship quarterbacks on the roster at the moment. Obviously, Khalil Wilkins, who was a part of that 2024 recruiting class, he'll be involved here somewhat soon, sometime in the summer months. But when you get a kid that arrives that late, he's a high school kid. He was already kind of labeled as somebody that was going to be somewhat of a project. It wasn't going to be, a quick thing for him. It starts to make you wonder about what West Virginia should do at that position. And it's kind of tricky because, especially in today's era, like kids are transferring to go play and be a starting quarterback. No one's really transferring to be a backup. And certainly no one's transferring somewhere to go knowing that they're going to be the third string. So what does West Virginia do at that spot? I think that's really intriguing. And again, it may seem something like way down the list of priorities or worries or concerns, and I get that. But as I talked about a couple of days ago, you need Nico Marchiol to be ready, which we'll get deeper into that here in a second. But you also need him to be able to do whatever Garrett Green is being asked to do if he has to go in the game. One of the reasons why it didn't happen a year ago, along with the inexperience, was because Sean Boyle, the third stringer, would have been their only quarterback left, and he was really new. Didn't have a whole lot of experience in this offense, and if Nico went down, things could have hit the fan really quickly. So now this is spring. You got several months to go until you get the fall camp. I'm interested to see if West Virginia tries to land some type of a transfer, whether it's a grad transfer that is just looking to continue to play. Doesn't have, it's one of those kids that knows he's not going to start, but hey, if West Virginia comes calling, hey, it'd be pretty cool to be a part of something like that. And whether that's at the JUCO level, the FCS, Division II, maybe somebody that has 1 year of eligibility left. You don't want to waste it on a kid, that's virtually got, 3 years of eligibility. And, I mean, you might, because you never know what's going to happen with Nico or even with Garrett. But to me, I think you would want to try and find somebody with just 1 year of eligibility left, bridge that gap to know that going into the 24 season, you feel pretty good about the quarterback spot 1 through 3. And then you have Khalil Wilkins developing, not him as your third guy. So I don't know. It's not way up there on Neil Brown or Drew Fabianich's priority list, I'm sure, but having two quarterbacks only at the moment is less than ideal. So it'll be interesting from a spring game perspective to see how this is split up. I don't think that Neil Brown wants to have Garrett Green out there for all that long. I don't really think he wants Nico Marchiol out there all that long as well. They want to get them a good bulk of reps and put on a show for the fans. So obviously they're going to get a good bit of run, especially now with Sean Boyle not being here. But I imagine we'll see a healthy dose of Jackson Christ and Scotty Keene. So we'll see what those two walk-ons do. Maybe heck, one of them pushes to be a scholarship guy if they're developing well enough. We've seen over the years that Neil and his staff they'll give guys scholarships that are walk-ons. Now at the quarterback position, I don't know that they would, but I don't know. They've got to figure something out with that number 3 spot. I don't think it would be comfortable with Khalil Wilkins being that guy, but we'll see. So, what to expect in the spring game? Let's move on to that. Let's stick at quarterback. Garrett Green. We obviously know the completion percentage was not too sexy in 2023. It was around 52, 53% for much of the year. A lot of factors that went into that. He was not healthy at the beginning of the year, so it took him a long time to get going. And I think a lot of folks forget that. He played Penn State in the season opener. That defense was loaded with draft picks. And playing there in your first ever true road start, knowing that you're the guy for the whole season, and you're playing there to kick off the season against that defense, against that defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz, that's a tough task. You then play Duquesne. Whoop-de-doo, right? Basically scrimmage in front of, 40,000 fans. Then you play 6 snaps against Pitt, get hurt. So now the ankle's an issue. He misses the whole rest of that Pitt game. He misses the entire Texas Tech game. Probably was on track to miss the TCU game until late in the week. Nico hurt his ankle, and Garrett said, I'll give it a shot, and he ended up playing pretty well. Completion percentage are still not there, but again, the injury. I don't really think Garrett started to become really himself until about late October, early November. And a lot of that, again, was because of that injury that he had with the ankle. He got banged up a few times. But some of it, too, is just mechanical. It's just, awareness. It's knowing when to, back off the fastball. We talked about it, with EJ Horton, that he's only got one club in his bag, with the go balls. Garrett, you kind of say the same thing. He's got one club in his bag. He's got, the driver. He's got that thing. He's going to smack it 440 yards, even though, he's only got to hit it 280. He's got to bring it down a little bit. He's got to know when to have some touch on the ball. He's got to know when to bring some MPHs off of that and just deliver some soft touch passes. The swing routes don't need to be 100 miles an hour. And I get it. He's a baseball guy. Trust me, I know. I was a baseball kid growing up. Every time I threw football, I wanted to throw it like it was my 98-mile-an-hour fastball that I never had. But you've got to be understanding of when to throw it hard, when it needs to be thrown hard, when it needs to be, taken off a little bit, when to have some more touch to it. That's something that they have diligently been working on since the end of last season. And they believe that he can get up into that mid to upper 60s in terms of his completion percentage. So do we see a different Garrett Green, or an improved Garrett Green, I should say? One that knows how to put better touch on the ball, one that has maybe better posture in the pocket, has better footwork, more cleaned up. He's not falling off when he goes to one side of the field. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Just clean, simple mechanics that allow him to complete the easy stuff. He can complete the deep ball with high accuracy. Can he complete the layups? That was the one thing that time and time again really hurt him in this offense last year. If you complete those dinks and dunks, all of a sudden, this offense is more efficient and they're scoring the ball more. Running backs, again, this is kind of hard too. This is really kind of like a 7-on-7 type of deal, right? Like the defense doesn't have much that you can look for. Running backs is kind of you can kind of see it a little bit in terms of how they identify what gaps to hit and so on and so forth, and what angles to take, whether to bounce it, bend it, bang it, all that sort of stuff. But it's really a 7-on-7. and you're really looking at the quarterback, you're looking at the receivers, the defensive backs. That's kind of what this thing's geared for. But running backs, I think I want to see how Jalen Anderson takes this opportunity and literally runs with it. Jaheim White, we all know what he can do. They don't want him to get hurt in this thing. CJ Donaldson, I don't know how much he's going to really get in this thing either. And your number 3 guy right now would be Jalen Anderson. So does Jalen take that opportunity and put his foot in the ground and say, look, I'm going to be here in the fall. I'm going to push for playing time. We saw so many ups and downs from this kid over the last 2 years. It's been an absolute roller coaster. He has the huge game at Oklahoma State to end 2022. 23, you saw some flashes here and there, kind of a little bit in the Pitt game. But for the most part, 23 was not a good year for him. Turnovers, especially the interception in the Houston game, the fumble, and that little trick play against UCF. Just it was not a strong end of the year for him. He lost a lot of playing time down the stretch. And again, was somebody I thought would hit the portal. He didn't. I give all credit to the kid for sticking it out at least through the spring to see if he can push. So Jalen Anderson's who I got my eyes on in the running back room. I'm not worried about Jaheim White. I'm not worried about CJ Donaldson. To be honest with you, I don't even care if they have 2 carries combined. I don't need to see him. I get it for the fans, but I don't need to see him. We can see him in August 31st against Penn State. Offensive line, obviously, finding a way to replace the production of Zach Frazier and Doug Nestor. Feels like they've already got that sort of figured out with Brandon Yates at center, Nick Malone at right tackle, Xavier Bosley, the Jackson State transfer, also pushing for that right tackle spot. But how does that unit look together? How much cohesion do they already have? Is there some sort of a drop off from what we saw last year with those 5, including Frazier and Nestor, compared to this group? Remac's not in there. So obviously you're going to have a new face at left guard. So this is obvious. This is clearly not going to be the most well-oiled machine. But you still have Thomas Remack or Wyatt Milam. You still have Jaquay Hubbard. You still have Brandon Yates. Those are 3 kind of key guys that have played a good bit of football here. So what does this thing look like? Does one of those left guards, Sully Weedman, Mo Hamilton, do either of those guys assert themselves to being somebody that can be a part of that rotation? I'm not going to start over Tomas Remack, but can they be a part of that rotation? Nick Cray, that's another one I've constantly been hearing about this entire spring. They believe he's ready. I'm interested to see what he looks like on the field. We haven't really seen a whole lot of it. So, and then moving over to receivers, tight ends. Obviously, Jaden Bray is what everyone's going to be looking at and looking for, the Oklahoma State transfer. I've got my eyes on Jarrell Williams. Like I said earlier in the week, this is year 3 for him. And this is the time at a kid's career where you kind of start to figure out if he's ever going to really be able to help you or not. So Jarrell Williams, I think this is a great opportunity for him. We already know about Rodney Gallagher, Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement, Preston Fox. We know what those guys bring to the table. But specifically with those younger guys, Gallagher, Clement, and Ray, what do they look like compared to what we last saw them in the bowl game? Are they still guys that look like they're still kind of figuring some things out, or are they starting to master their position, specifically Rodney? Because again, he played quarterback in high school. How much further along, how much more advanced is he at running routes, understanding leverage? That's what I'm interested to see with him. Traylon Ray, he's probably the most polished, I would say, of the 3. You can maybe even make an argument for Hudson there, but we've heard really, really good things about Hudson Clement, how he's bigger and even faster than he was a year ago. What does that look like? Because if he's faster than he was a year ago, Big 12 defense are going to have some issues on their hands, especially if they add another receiver in the transfer portal over the summer. Tight end, Cole Taylor's not playing, so someone's got to step up. Someone's got to make themselves known as a contributor for the fall now. Is that Will Dixon? Is that Noah Braham? Is that TJ Johnson? Or is it somebody that's not even here yet? What happens on Saturday? Again, I will say this for years and years and years. The spring game is not the end all be all for the coaching staff and for these players in terms of their evaluations, where the guys are going to be projected to play. It's just another data point. And I would argue that the practices in the spring are more valuable and more pertinent than the game itself. Now, there is an added value to having the game played, and you have that kind of game-like feel, and you're playing in front of people, and what does that transition look like from practice to the spring game? I get that, but these things aren't weighted completely differently, especially in the favor of the spring game. So if a guy doesn't perform well in the spring game, don't think he's just going to be written off. If he blows up, don't think all of a sudden, oh my gosh, that's the guy right there. He's going to be an all-league player. Let's not overreact to anything that happens in this game. You can be excited for sure. You can be disappointed in somebody, but don't get overreactive. It's just a spring game. It's a practice. So in terms of the holistic view of this for the offense, I mean, it sounds pretty cliche, but when you have a quarterback that's been around for a long time now in Garrett Green, you have a running back room who, even though is probably not going to see a ton of action, it'll probably be geared toward more, the Jalen Andersons, the Clay Ashes. Is Clay Ash a guy that can maybe push himself into a scholarship role down the road, or maybe just a contributor role in some way, shape, or form this season? Maybe. But can this be a clean game? This is a very experienced group in terms of the offensive line, the quarterback, the running backs. The receivers are really the only spot of this offense that are really young. So can this be a clean game? Do the receivers know what they're doing? Do they look more advanced than they were a year ago? And they were pretty advanced for their age. And efficiency is, I think, the biggest thing I'm going to be looking for. Because when he gets to the fall, you've got to be, Garrett Green's got to be completing over 60% of his passes. You've got to be completing third downs at a high clip. You've got to be converting in the red zone. If you want to be a Big 12 contender, you have to do those things. You have to continue to move the football. You have to score the football. Sounds very, very plain and simple. But last year, it came in spurts. You need to see more consistency with this offense. How do you find that without Zach Frazier? How do you find that without Doug Nestor? How do you find that even with Devin Carter? What does it look like without Cole Taylor? If something were to happen where Cole Taylor gets hurt, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to find out in the spring game, unless they add somebody. So a lot of things to watch for in the spring game for the offense. I'm interested to also see too. I'll leave you with this. Nico, is he somebody that's pushing, Garrett Green really, really hard? And as I said earlier in the week, he doesn't have to push Garrett for the starting job. That's not happening. It's not going to happen. He's not going to leapfrog Garrett Green. We all understand that. But can he close that gap from where it was this year, right here, to here? If he does that, this quarterback room, this offense is in a really good shape, not only this year, but for Garrett to be able to hand the baton over to Nico at the end of the season and say, just keep on keeping on, brother. That's the best case scenario. How close is he to becoming that type of quarterback? Is it already happened, or has he still got a little work to do? We'll find out on Saturday. So that's going to do it for me here today and this week here on Between Ears. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Give us a thumbs up and a follow on X at that same handle. Again, I'm Schuyler Callihan. You can follow me at Callihan_. We'll see you guys on Monday to recap the spring game action talk a little bit about some of our surprises, some guys that are rising in their stock, who to be concerned about. We'll touch on all bases back here on Monday. Have a good weekend. Take care. Have fun at the spring game.